Okay, I'm back quicker than imagined. But again, a game that is getting treated in a way that it doesn't deserve has arisen. Mass Effect Andromeda, a soft reboot of the Mass Effect series, came out a month and a half ago, and due to me having a job and finishing up that behemoth Breath of the Wild review that actually was really well received by people with brain cells who took the time to watch it, I just finished Andromeda a little over a week ago, and now I have a few things I'd like to say about it in a quicker format than my last review. Story is what prompted me to make this video, so gameplay first. Also, don't worry, I will alert you when spoilers are going to begin, so you're safe until then. The gameplay is the best it's been in the series ever. Disclaimer though, I played as a man-guard, so if you out there had a lesser experience because you played as a lesser class, it's too bad. The added verticality of the jump jets or the biotics mixed with the pre-existing horizontal freedom of charge in the biotics tree makes for some frantic, in-your-face gameplay. When proper shield restoring and melee enhancing perks are taken, it creates a playstyle that rewards you for jumping into heaps of enemies and to only go behind cover in extreme circumstances. The increased pace is so enjoyable that in my opinion it more than made up for the loss of squad abilities. However, I would have liked if we could bind more than 3 abilities to our keyboards. I'm not sure if this is a limitation due to consoles or a balancing change. Either way, it's a bummer because once you get to the mid-level 30s, you run out of things to put points into outside of just rogue experimentation. It's implied early that the game wants you to level up more than one type of profile, but why would anybody want to play anything other than a man-guard? Especially considering how mundane the other ones tend to be in comparison. I see a lot more of a split opinion on the combat than I would have expected from the community after my personal experience, and putting multiplayer aside, I believe this is a rift between people who played this game like a shock trooper and those who played it like Gears of War. The exploration is fine, but far from stellar considering other games that released in this same month. An over-reliance on spiderweb maps and waypoints chokes out any sense of actual organic exploration, but the beautiful environments and vistas can sometimes drive you to move off the beaten path if you are the type of person to notice and appreciate that type of thing. Lots of good wallpaper fodder here, folks. It's just that these beautiful vistas, while making great screenshots and trailer fodder, don't add anything to the gameplay experience. They just make you forget how limited the environments are. This is not a case of see that mountain, you can climb it. The game does not promise that, however, and in turn doesn't really need to deliver it. The gamification of outpost creation and initiative expansion is what drives you to explore, more than any kind of potential hidden treasure. The AVP system, Andromeda Viability Point system, while gamey as fuck, is a decent system which boils down everything positive you do in the cluster into an experience system, and every time you gain an Andromeda Viability level, or level up, you can then unlock cryopods, pick a perk, which gives you some kind of bonus, most of which are boring, but helpful. You are essentially leveling up twice, simultaneously. If you do everything the game has to offer, you're gonna hit max Nexus level, which is 20, well before you reach the end of the game, and with how lackluster the perks are, I don't see how a hard cap was necessary. Instead, as it stands now, you just hit a brick wall in progression and stop being rewarded for completing missions about 3/4 of the way through the game. Because while you hit a hard cap in the AVP system, simultaneously you hit a soft cap in the traditional leveling system that I mentioned before. The first number of hours of this game are pretty damn slow. The tutorial mission through Eos and Havarl all seemed a bit too on rails for my taste. Vold was the first planet whose environment opened up enough for me to feel as if the game was truly open world for the first time, due to a lack of a directed narrative and the inclusion of the Nomad. Eos and Havarl did not have these things, respectively, as they were tutorial planets. After Vold, though, is when the game fully opens up to its maximum potential with the introduction of numerous side quests, either from the Nexus, its leadership, random NPCs you meet, or your squad mates. It can actually be overwhelming at some points, the pure number of things to do on certain planets, and here in what I would call the Act 2 of the game is when it's at its best. Things start to slow down again in Act 3 with less to do before reaching the conclusion, and the individual missions you receive as rewards for completing the optional side or loyalty missions for each crew are short, bland, and underwhelming. quite lacking when compared to Mass Effect 2. Except for the love scene you receive from romancing Cora or PB, then it's all worth it. Mass Effect Andromeda really manages to live up to its own term of Pathfinder when it comes to virtual softcore porn, and I don't know what it means exactly for this game when I say that these sex scenes are one of its high points. Arguably, its highest. They may have been the most polished part of the whole damn game. They are that well done. YouTube them shits if you haven't seen them yet. It's obvious where the 5-year development time was spent, and these scenes animations were not outsourced. A few final random points before we get into this story. The UI is a goddamn mess, but it can be tamed. Do not be afraid, dive in, and you'll figure it out after crafting an item or two. I'm not apologizing for it, just saying that it's surmountable. The game is an unpolished, buggy mess. This has been beaten to death by reviewers, so I don't have much to add here other than my personal experience. If you want a great made and edited video on it, go check out Crobat's channel.
Maybe I'm foolish, maybe I'm blind, thinking I can see through this, see what's behind. Got no way to prove it, so maybe I'm lying. No way this is home.
That's why I'm here, exploring the unknown.
Who are these guys?
Visitors just like us.
Oh, get her on the shuttle now!
Nice work, kid.
I'm only human, after all. I'm only human, after all. Don't put the blame on me. Don't put the blame on me.
I have 2 or 3 quests in my quest log that I can't finish due to bugs. The game soft locked on me twice while exploring planets, and I had some audio clips repeat multiple times and in locations that they were not supposed to, once actually spoiling upcoming events. Other than that, they were not game affecting, just humorous. The crafting system is nice, however it's hampered by the obtuse UI and the need for 2 different sets of resources. The inclusion of both research data and mining resources was not needed. One or the other, preferably just the mining resources. Drop the scanning and research point system in future games, please. It is tedious, disrupts the flow of the game, and stops me from enjoying the beautiful environments that this game has to offer because I am laboriously scanning everything to make sure that I have enough points for my next version of Remnant armor. It's not fun, and the flavor text you gain from it, I quickly learned to ignore. As I said, tedious. Alright, story time. Everything mentioned before, the low-hanging fruit most reviewers or people out there who, for whatever reason, were looking to dislike this game, are going to point to when trying to make a point about how bad Mass Effect Andromeda is. The thing is, those issues, the UI, the animations, which were patched to be a bit better a few weeks ago, the bugs, are things at least personally I can look past and still enjoy the game in spite of them. Especially a Mass Effect game, which I play and I believe most people play for, with the inclusion of casual mode in Mass Effect 3, the story. The story, characters, and universe building are where this game truly disappoints longtime fans. Characters are going to be the most subjective of the bunch. Personally, outside of Jal, Cora, and maybe PB towards the end of the game once she reached the end of her character arc and started to trust the crew, I didn't like or have any strong feelings towards the rest of the Tempest crew or the expanded cast of characters. At different times, Callow, Drac, the Moshai, and Liam all went so far as to piss me off when they overreacted to decisions I had to make. Callow with not turning over the Solarian trader who had a mountain of useful info on the Kett, Drac for saving the Solarian civvies and the Pathfinder over his gaggle of scouts after I just gave the drive core to a shitty war chief, the Moshai for not sucking her off well enough after rescuing her, or selecting an Angaran for whatever position I was picking at the end of the game, and Liam for just existing. Jal I enjoyed because as a whole he added a lot more to every mission and set piece as he was a near constant fixture of my ground team because of that. Cora's my boo, at least until the waifu arc arrives and I get my tally 2.0, and PB was kind of adorable, annoying at first, but she did end up winning me over. Ryder, your player character, seems to be universally less liked than Shepard. I hear often about how people can't connect with him, and I agree. I think most people, however, don't understand the reason why they can't. Ryder can only be played 2 ways. Either sarcastic, quippy, low random, boring, monotone, serious. Which, by the way, both options suffer from the same problem Fallout 4 did, where an option and the dialogue it represents are completely different sometimes, leading me to feel less in control of my character than necessary.
Why?
Hello. Fucker.
I'm gonna kill your whole family for fun.
Dramatization may not have happened.
Shepard was never really a well fleshed out character. Even after 3 games, I'd say he comes in behind Ryder after only 1. This game does a better job than previous ones at giving you reasons to care about your player character on a personal level, but this doesn't make up for the lack of raw emotion that Ryder has when compared to Shepard. Shepard could be played as a valiant hero who must do good by as many people as possible, sacrificing his well-being if need be, or he could be played as a fucking badass who runs his ship military and knocks out reporters making disingenuous assertions while throwing people out of buildings who piss him off. It was more fun to roleplay in Shepard's shoes because he was a larger-than-life character. Ryder is just...
How about goodbye?
me, and I don't play escapist entertainment to play as me. Ryder on more than one occasion comes off as such a weakling, letting his subordinates walk all over him and not giving the player an option to lace into somebody who deserves it. This is a soft reboot of the Mass Effect franchise, and our replacement protagonist is worse than the previous in every way. Except for his or her backstory, which they didn't shape, their much cooler father did. Even the frame of our protagonist is designed to be less impressive. It had to be a conscious design decision to make our character weaker and more approachable, and the lukewarm reception Ryder has received is the price to be paid for these decisions. The universe or world building used narratively, not literally, an important distinction with this game, is significantly worse than the last first game in the previous trilogy. Mass Effect 1 sets up a galaxy with 15 plus species, new technologies, and reasonable explanations in the codex for all of them, as well as backstory between Solarians, Turians, Krogan regarding the Genophage, the humans and Turians with the First Contact War, including specific skirmishes like Shang-Chi, Batarian slaver invasions, the history of human spaceflight, and our rapid technological expansion after finding Prothean ruins on Mars, and much more. That's just what I remember a few years after having played the original trilogy last. What do we get in Andromeda? 2 new species, one whose backstory is near non-existent for story reasons, the other non-existent for separate story reasons, and some new tech that isn't explained at all. The big questions: what is the Scourge? Who are the Remnant? What is the Jardan? Who the fuck knows? I have a feeling even BioWare isn't sure yet. The big twist/reveal at the end of the game that has become standard for Mass Effect games since the unveiling of the Reapers in Mass Effect 1 comes out of left field. The idea that the Angarans were created by the Remnant/Jardan is interesting, but the effects of this reveal to the larger story are next to non-existent. Unlike the Reaper reveal, which set the stage for the next 2 games and increased the stakes dramatically in Mass Effect 1, the Angaran origins mean nothing, and any importance from this revelation will have to be manufactured as opposed to expected. Also, did anybody else notice the weird timing with the beginning of the development of Mass Effect Andromeda shortly after Mass Effect 3 in March 2012, and the release of Prometheus in June of 2012? And both of these IPs having the idea that a race was created by another race scientifically? Just a little curious there. The Kett are nothing more than mustache twirlers in this game. Stereotypical advanced alien species that look down upon all others as inferior, and how we are cockroaches, and yada yada. Yet we see nothing from them technologically that makes them any more threatening than a band of Raider exiles fighting with the stolen rolls of toilet paper they took off the Nexus. When it comes to what the Kett want, at least that is a little bit more interesting than not at all, but ultimately we don't know much about what drives the Kett to do what they do and to have become what they've become. There's no way they started out as an asexual race that requires gene therapy to reproduce. And again, this is by design. It is made clear the Archon, the leader of the Kett and the Helios cluster, and our main antagonist, was disobeying orders given to him by his higher-ups in the Kett hierarchy. So everything we learned of the Kett in this game means nothing, as can all be explained away if necessary moving forward as the Archon going rogue. The only plot threads we have moving into Andromeda 2 is that the larger threat of the Kett and greater Andromeda, which at this point we have no reason to care about as they are boring and offer no real threat, and unraveling the secrets of the Remnant, which again, we're given no reason to care about as we play as explorers, not scientists. We also get the history of the Initiative before the Hyperion arrives on the Nexus, with the revolt and the exile of the rebels. This was an understandable inclusion, as the game would get really boring if we spent its entirety only fighting Kett and Angara. So this allows for human, Turian, Asari, and Solarian enemies. Just not much was done with it, and it never sat well with me that a group of the best, all screened physically and mentally by the Andromeda Initiative, would fall to chaos within a year of reaching Andromeda, even with everything that went wrong. I guess this is the level of writing we can expect for Mass Effect moving forward, with BioWare putting Drew Karpyshyn on SWTOR, and for whatever reason putting Mac, your choices have huge consequences, in Mass Effect 3, Walters, in charge as creative director for Andromeda. When writing this all out, it really seems to me now as if the developers either have no greater direction set yet for Andromeda, or they aren't confident enough in their writing to lock themselves into a narrative, and that this game was really just about narratively putting the pieces on the board, which can be expected to some degree with a new series, kind of like a new TV show. However, this comparison may be more apt than you expect, with Casey Hudson claiming that Andromeda is not slated to be a trilogy, but as many games as they feel fit. It could be 2 games, it could be 6, or more, or anything in between. So instead of getting a well-crafted show like Breaking Bad or Game of Thrones, whose ending is planned from the beginning, we're getting a network television show that will continue on for 11 seasons well past its expiration date, or until it's abruptly cancelled.